All right, didn't get all 3 lectures done before school, but coming to you from my planet, getting 3 lectures done in one day. Woo! Okay, so we are talking about expansion and international standing today. So, weird sounds outside my door. Sounds like a duck. We're going to be talking about the conflict that's happening like the middle stories, like during Jefferson's presidency, and how that's going to spill over and boil over as we move forward. So there's Napoleonic Wars in Europe happening. Napoleon Bonaparte going all over Europe, taking over total land and fighting with everybody. And that is going to be brought into America because they are taking American citizens and they are forcing them to get off their ships and go fight for the French, to go fight for the English. And America's like, hey, you can't do that. Those are our American citizens. That's just like darn tootin' rude. And so you're going to have what's called the Chesapeake Leopard Affair. This is going to be a naval engagement that is going to occur off the coast of Norfolk, Virginia on June 22nd, 1807. And this is going to be between the British warship, the HMS Leopard, and the American frigate, which is a boat, USS Chesapeake. The crew of the Leopard is going to pursue and attack the Americans aboard the frigate. And they say they're looking for deserters of the Royal Navy. The Chesapeake's going to be caught unprepared. They have a short battle, and they are going to eventually have to surrender to the British. And the Chesapeake is going to only fire one shot because like they weren't ready for this. Like they just were not prepared. They're going to be removed. They're going to be tried for deserting the British Army and going to be hanged. So the Chesapeake's going to return home, and this is going to create uproar among Americans because they're like, hey, Great Britain, like, how are they doing this? We should go to war with them. This is just totally terrible, not okay. Thomas Jefferson initially is going to use this to diplomatically threaten the British government into settling the matter, and the U.S. Congress is going to back down from armed conflict when British envoys are going to show that they're not going to like try to go against what happened there and try to fight against it. But this is going to lead the way to the embargo of 1807. The embargo of 1807 is when American ships were kept from leaving American ports until the French and British lifted the restrictions on trade and lifted the restrictions against the Americans. This is going to weaken the American economy. And eventually then when James Madison will be elected in 1808, he's going to continue the restrictions on American trade, and this is going to be hurting who the Americans trade with, and this is kind of hurting them in the long run. Okay, our Western war hawks, just like a hawk is a bird of prey and going after things, think of that, but in terms of war. Our Western war hawks are going to be our Democratic Republicans, and they are going to see that violence is breaking out between natives and white settlers, that they feel like the British are aiding the natives and trying to stir up the pot of war. And they're like, declare war on Britain. They're terrible. They're doing bad things. They're, stealing American citizens. They're trying to instigate a fight with the natives. They're just truly terrible. And so the War of 1812, when it finally breaks out, they're going to say that Britain had violated our nation's commercial rights and our sovereignty, and they're just all about war. The Battle of Tippecanoe. So this is going to be a victory of seasoned U.S. expeditionary forces under Major General William Henry Harrison, who is going to later become president and die shortly after he takes office because pneumonia. And then like all the treatment that they try to give to him that just kills him faster. Anyways, so the battle is going to take place in Prophetstown, and it's the Indian capital on the Tippecanoe River. And you're going to see that Harrison is on a mission to destroy the power of the Intertribal Defensive Alliance that is Tejmush, I can never say this one, I'm sorry. Tecumseh, oh no, Tecumseh. So they're going to go in, they're going to repel a Shawnee attack, they're going to burn the village, and eventually the troops that are left, the native troops that are left over, are going to flee to Canada. You're going to see that this isn't going to end American Indian resistance to U.S. expansion into the Ohio Valley, but it is going to be U.S. victory on the part of the expansion and what they're trying to move into. And it's going to break Tejmush's power. He was a really powerful Indian chief that he was connecting a lot of tribes and pulling them together to fight against white settlers and uniting a lot of different natives in order to fight against the white settlers. And it's going to end the threat of an Indian confederation of different tribes coming together and having a common vision and trying to fight for that. Okay, the War of 1812. So the majority of Europe is fighting either for or against Napoleon Bonaparte. And the British are going to be a part of that. And so we're going to declare war on Britain because we're tired of you not listening to us, and we're telling you what to do and you're just not listening to us, and that's just rude. So we declare war. The British are going to adopt a defensive strategy, just defending what they want to keep. The Americans are going to have a more offensive strategy where they're going to try to gain territory. You're going to see that this war is going to be really, really unpopular in New England. That's where a lot of our Federalists are, and this is ultimately going to cause the demise of the Federalist Party. So we are going to start off the war. The Americans are going to start off the war by invading Canada and trying to improve American morale and trying to take parts of Canada, and it's really going to fail. We try to capture Montreal, and it goes terribly. 1813, we had the Battle of Lake Erie, where we win control of Lake Erie, and then you're going to see the Battle of Thames. We're going to defeat Tecumseh's Confederacy. You're going to see that at sea, in the ocean, the Royal Navy are going to blockade the American ports. They cut off trade. They're going to raid the coast. They go all up and down the coast of America and just going into towns and burning things and causing mass chaos. And ultimately, you're going to see that the British are able to attempt to invade New England. The Americans are going to successfully repulse that. It won't happen. But you're going to see down in more southern territory that they're going to be successful in that. Baltimore, this is where Francis Scott Key is going to write the Star Spangled Banner poem. It's a poem to begin with. The Battle of Baltimore, that's when they go to Washington, D.C., and they burn the White House as well as the Capitol. Well, not the Capitol building, but just the Washington, D.C. area. They burn it, and then this is back in the days before electricity, so over in Baltimore, because it's close enough, they were like, hey, looks like something's on fire over there, and that's the direction of Washington, D.C. Sounds bad. And so we start preparing for battle against the British, and we build an entrenchment, ready to go. People in Baltimore are so ready to fight. Fort McHenry gets popping, they're ready for it. And we actually make a giant super duper flag to fly over Fort McHenry to try to fool the British and how far away they are by deeming how big the flag is. And the tides were in our favor that night. They run afoul onto a bunch of oyster beds and just super awesome stuff, and we win. Hurrah, America. And ultimately, the War of 1812, the British are going to go farther south. Doesn't really work out for them. Ultimately ends the Battle of New Orleans. America will win the war, and Britain will again go back over to Europe to try to just focus their attention on fighting in Europe, pretty much just like the American Revolution. And you're going to see that, again, American sovereignty going to be reestablished and refocused on. All right, Federalists oppose the war. So when they vote on the War of 1812, whether or not to go to war, the Federalists are really, 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 really against it. The whole party is against it. Part of that's because they are feeling like it's unnecessary war, that it just needs to be diplomatic relations. Some are going to oppose it because of the business that will be lost because of this. And some of them are going to say it's a war of party, not of country, and they feel like it's just, too intense. We're too young as a country. We can't fight this war, so on and so forth. And so things get so intense that they actually talk about seceding from the nation. They put together the Connecticut, it's the Connecticut Compromise Constitution, something. Can't remember that. It's Connecticut something. So they put this together, and in there, they're pretty much no, Hereford Convention. It's in Connecticut. Hereford Convention came to me. That they put this together to hey, leave the war, or us states that have signed this are going to secede. We're going to leave. If you don't follow through on our grievances, we're real salty about this. We don't like the war. We just need to fix this. And so ultimately, you're already seeing talks of secession from states when they don't get what they want. And also you're seeing, you're also seeing the Federalist Party is going to take a very strong stance against something that's going to make them look foolish later after we win the War of 1812. Okay. The Treaty of Ghent. The Treaty of Ghent is going to end the War of 1812. By 1815, Britain is going to call for peace. The War of 1812 costs the United States $88 million and increases their national debt to $127 million. You know, probably we got that in our back pocket. It's going to put the U.S. borders back to the War of 1812 borders. And you're going to see that the Battle of New Orleans is going to happen after treaty calls have already been made by Britain. Battle of New Orleans happens after it because word didn't get to Andrew Jackson. But because of this battle, Andrew Jackson is going to emerge a national hero, and this will lift American morale overall. All right, the Federalist legacy. So the Federalist Party is going to die after the War of 1812. Not literally. Well, I mean, they're all going to die after the War of 1812, right? Because, you know, they're humans. But the party itself is going to die down because they don't exist anymore after the War of 1812. It was real awkward when you said, like, hey, we don't want to fight this war or we're going to secede, and then you win the war. But they have a lot of influence even today in 2019. First and foremost, John Marshall. That's this handsome fellow right here. He is going to be the Supreme Court Chief Justice for quite a while, and he makes the Supreme Court relevant again. He is appointed by John Adams, and he will take his job during the Jefferson presidency, and he served, I think, like for 40 years. And he, when he is Chief Justice, is going to make the Supreme Court super relevant and just a legitimate branch of the government in the checks and balances. There are three main things he's going to emphasize in his Supreme Court. One, judicial authority, that the Supreme Court and just courts in general have the power to pull in laws that are unconstitutional, questionable, whatever it might be, that they have the power to do that. The Supreme Court is a legitimate check and balance to the other branches of government and kind of laying down the law as it is. You're going to see also the second thing he is going to emphasize, the supremacy of natural law. So that is people's natural rights that are protected within the Constitution and trying to dominate that. And then thirdly, traditional property rights. You're going to see he is also going to emphasize the power of the federal government over states' government. It's a huge thing for John Marshall. He's all about that, and that's something he's going to emphasize quite a bit. You're going to see the War of 1812 is going to cause the Federalist Party to disappear, but you're going to see a lot of key figures, Alexander Hamilton, John Quincy Adams, James Monroe. Their ideas are going to live on throughout their lives and the decisions that they make, and that's going to influence as we move forward. Okay, the Monroe Doctrine. So James Monroe is going to become president, and after Madison, War of 1812, Monroe, now president. Monroe is going to oppose European colonialism in the Americas, both North and South America. And beginning 1823, James Monroe is going to create the Monroe Doctrine. And on there, it is going to pretty much draw a line between North and South America and the rest of the world and says, hey, Europe, if you cross this line, the United States is going to have to fight you. So if you try to colonize in Canada or Argentina or the United States, we're going to come for you, right? We're going to fight you. That's not okay. So this is going to kind of add a protective measure for those countries, but it is also going to kind of shift the United States' role as more of a safeguarding measure for a lot of different countries that's just not their own. That's showing you the expansion of the United States from our time period where we're little baby colonies to where after, you know, we expanded westward, the War of 1812, ta-da. Louisiana Purchase is made, that's great, arrow, is made under Thomas Jefferson, and that will literally double the size of the United States. and then the rest of it will come later in a little bit. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to sign up for Key Time to see me before or after school, to ask your question in class or on Edmodo because someone else might have the same question as you. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit the laptop. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful lecture.